Welcome to the Fantasy News!
Ooh, welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I am your disheveled goblin host, Daniel Green, and today I'm going to be asking for some help from the community, because if you could tell by the skit I made yesterday, Malazan can be a little bit difficult to get into, and I would like to try and help those who would like assistance by crafting a series of videos that help explain some of the lore, characters, races you encounter early on in the series, because, you know, one of the most common comments I've gotten since I started the channel is just how confusing Malazan is to get into, and I like to assist those who actually want it, or just Malazan fans who like to see Malazan content. So if you are a mega Malazan fan who would like to be a part of such a project, please feel free to go ahead and hit up this email, and I'll be selecting a few of you to run scripts with, things along those lines, and put out the best quality Malazan content a goblin can. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the fantasy news. And we're gonna go ahead and kick this off with some... Actually, I just have a question for you. Come a little closer, not that close, that's weird. Why are there so many Witcher covers? It seems like more than any other series we cover here on the channel, Witcher be getting them covers, and they're consistently quality. Because yes, Orbit is releasing another round of Witcher covers, and they look like this, and that, and this and that. My personal favorite of this selection is this more painted approach, because it actually kind of looks like how I envision fantasy books when I read them. There's a little peek into my brain. But I'm just left with the question, do Witcher fans collect the series just again and again and again? Because it genuinely feels like every 6 months we're getting a whole new run, and they must be selling. I mean, even the Discord server, where if you'd like to join and be a part of Fantasy News, you can post stories. You don't see me covering the Discord server and the Fantasy News channel. But when this was posted, it had 15 fire emoji reactions, and when you compare that to most stories, they don't get any emoji reactions. I don't know, Witcher fans be die hard. It's a series I barely remember outside the characters, but the people who love it, they love it. But moving on into the next story of the day, we got a trailer drop for The Law, the next book in the Dresden Files series. And these book trailers are becoming more and more common. I quite like them as a fantasy fan. Obviously the bar isn't exactly super high, though it does seem to be crawling higher. And The Law I'm quite hyped for, obviously. I'm a big Dresden fan. It's just one of these things where it's like, I wish it was a little better. I wanted a little bit more from this trailer, but The Law itself, still excited for it. It'll be out July 5th. Expect a review on the channel. But the next book trailer kinda hit it out of the park, and that's going to be for Ruination, the first book in the League of Legends universe. At least I believe it's the first novel. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this trailer was a bop, and definitely got me very excited to pick up this book, and also just learn more about this universe as a whole. Obviously, there are more fantasy franchises than ever fighting right now for our attention and money, and Arcane, backed with League of Legends, did such a good job that I see this being one of the ones that is going to take off to far bigger than it already is in the future, if it can also start landing these novels. But the marketing campaign seems solid enough. The video on their channel has good views, and the audience reception to this seems to be universally positive. I'm not too familiar with the author, Anthony Reynolds, but he does have positive reviews in his catalog. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Could League of Legends start entering that Warhammer 40k level expanse of just multimedia franchise that lasts decades and decades and decades? Or is this just a flash of success and it'll always just be the video game franchise and done? Well, I don't think anyone's gonna argue that. You know, where do you think it'll fall on the scale of 1 to 10? 1 being it's going to be forgotten soon, and 10 being the next Pokemon. For those of you who don't know, Pokemon is actually the fantasy franchise that's made the most money over any. Surprised to learn that? I sure was.
And in a last-minute fantasy news update, sorry there's gonna be a couple of these today, I have some rather sad news around Fonda Lee's Greenbone Saga. Unfortunately, the adaptation over at Peacock has been dropped. This does not mean we are not getting an adaptation from the Greenbone Saga, just that unfortunately it's back to shopping it around for someone else to adapt the series, which I seriously hope does happen, as it's probably my favorite trilogy of recent memory.
But slipping back into TBR expansion news, just to add a little bit of stress to your life, you will never complete your TBR, and it'll grow faster than you can read forever. Trust me, I've tried. But we had the winners announced for the Locus Awards, and I was very happy to see Jade Blade Legacy take away Best Fantasy Novel. Completely agree. There are tons of fantastic books to check out here, many of which I've read and recommended on the channel. So if you would like to add a couple more books, go ahead and check this on out in the links down below. But it wouldn't be an episode of Fantasy News without some adaptation updates. And for the upcoming Fallout adaptation, we had 3 more cast members announced, including a personal favorite of mine. But we have had added to the series Kyle MacLachlan, Zila Mendez-Jones, and Aaron Moten. And seeing Kyle in there immediately made me start thinking of David Lynch, cuz duh, which made me think of Twin Peaks, cuz duh. And I actually really would love a David Lynchian Twin Peaks tone style adaptation of Fallout. That's just a random thought I wanted to put out there and get a response from Fallout fans. I mean, even David Lynch is still shown he can put out quality work, but we'll never get it because that's not what's happening. And it was just a thought. Now, just in case you've forgotten, this is going to be an Amazon adaptation of Fallout, and we already had Ella Purnell and Walton Goggins as our original announced cast. So this is just 3 more joining them along for the ride. My favorite quests, missions in Fallout have been when there's more of a psychological, disturbing edge to this nuclear Fallout dystopia. And so for me, seeing people like Kyle MacLachlan come involved, I'd love to see him as a villain. Ella Purnell starring, she's really talented. And so I'm actually getting pretty hyped. Amazon has shown they have been able to adapt things really well with The Boys and Invincible, where they arguably improved the source material. So this could possibly fall into that lane where we see some really talented individuals bring an expansive, interesting, dark show to life. But I would also argue that bringing Fallout to life is a much harder feat to accomplish than The Boys or Invincible. It falls more into the Wheel of Time territory, which Amazon did struggle with a bit. But in quickie news, a premiere date has officially been announced for Vampire Academy over at Peacock, and that will be September 15th.
If the Dark Lord does not take the world by then.
But our next 2 pieces of news are going to be around the Avatar franchise, because it seems that they have guaranteed the upcoming Avatar projects are going to maintain their 2D aesthetic, obviously not the live action, but everything else that's been announced. I wasn't really aware that was something I should be afraid of until they said this, so yeah, keep it 2D. Who in the world was even thinking of making Avatar 3D? Absolutely not. Wow, that was too many buttons unbuttoned. I looked like a douche. But in the final piece of Avatar news, live action adaptation aside, it has been confirmed that these new projects are not adapting the comics as many people have speculated, and instead are all new stories for the universe. Personally, despite knowing that many fans love those comics, I really like this. I like the idea of continuing to grow and expand this universe because there is still so much potential in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Taking it further back, taking it forward, just exploring the timeline we already knew and loved. This world has stories to tell. I mean, just looking at the setting alone, there is so much you can still do with it. So I'm very happy to hear that, as long as it's good. I mean, duh. And in a story I wasn't originally going to cover, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, why wasn't I? John Williams is officially retiring from composing for films, and that hurts. I obviously am very sad to hear that. Apparently Indiana Jones 5 will be his last, but I'm also just kind of filled with this emotion of gratitude that I was able to experience this master of his craft's work. So yeah, let's just have a big salute and send off for John Williams, maybe the greatest composer for the genres that we've ever seen. But this has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. I got books, I got merch, and have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier patrons, S-Man 3000, Chang Mao, Nestor Valadez, and Chat God.